course, and give just a little information on the air cargo qualification process and also air cargo policy. Can we go to the next slide? One more. So we don't really have these slides. I wanted to just give a quick overview. And after this, if you have additional questions, please feel free to email us, and we can answer any questions you may have on air cargo qualification, technology, etc. For air cargo, unlike passenger aviation, screening equipment is not owned and operated by TSA. It is owned and operated by industry. We do regulate it, however, and as part of that regulation, we qualify equipment, and we put out a air cargo screening technology list that all regulated parties, all airlines, all shippers have to screen the screen cargo that goes on passenger aircraft. So we have an RFI, request for information, that's on FedBizOps. We're currently updating it. Not a lot of changes, it's just some more refresh. And that describes our process. The entry point is a white paper. We currently look for 4 different technology groups: non-CT X-ray, ETD trace, metal detection for large pieces of cargo, and EDS. One thing we are doing right now with EDS is we've actually developed our own specification for cargo, and we are starting to qualify EDS for cargo in particular. Now, a lot of cargo can't really go through EDS because of the limitations of the aperture. However, a lot of the express mail kinds of things, express packages like the DHL, UPS, there's a lot of interest in using EDS for the smaller packages. So we've listed that. We're actually working on trying to get those kinds of devices qualified on our list. And let me hand it over to Allan. Allan discusses our policy and basically the procedures that the regulated parties have to use to use the equipment.
All right, good morning, everybody. So what I want to do is I just kind of listed a bunch of things here that my branch kind of deals with, and just kind of a wide variety of policies and requirements issues. So we support a lot of different initiatives and programs throughout TSA. So we're kind of tied to a lot of different divisions, and we just handle a wide variety of stuff. So primarily we're the domestic and international air cargo screening procedures, policies and requirements is basically what we do. But then it goes into, now that we have the policies and procedures, what are the capability gaps? We work real closely with DHS, S&T, and R&D folks on capability gaps analysis, reviews of some submissions for different types of capability proposals. We do a lot of harmonization all throughout TSA. So if we have like chief counsel, they would go down like say a foreign country and they're working on developing a cargo security program for them. We help them understanding what the requirements are, different locations, different cargo screening procedures, what their technologies are that they may want to use. We'll help them understanding policy requirements on what type of technologies, alarm resolution procedures, all the things associated with any kind of policy development that that country may need. We do a tremendous amount of industry outreach. We get phone calls on weekly, daily basis asking us questions about policy requirements, asking about directions. From that, they have standard security programs that they have to comply with all the regulated entities that screen cargo. They have standard security programs that tell them exactly what to do. They're asking us for the clarity of it, maybe some amendments to those programs. So we get into helping the security operations folks or chief counsel folks in developing an amendment to a security program and make sure it's in alignment with the intent of TSA security posture. We also support some data collection efforts, just collecting data like, what technologies is primarily used, what commodities is it used in, what's the environment it's used in, and that helps us to develop some policies and procedures if people are asking to modify something or to understand the capability of a system, like say in Lima, Peru, where they may want to use an ETD at that altitude. What's going to be the effect of the altitude on the technologies? So we get into some of the questions and policy things like that. We're supporting the mail office right now, United States Post Office. They're getting into a scenario where they want to screen more and more mail. So we're looking at supporting them in policy. They kind of need to align their cargo screening or their mail screening procedures with the policy screening procedures of cargo, but then they have different challenges with what they classify priority mail, first class, expedited, and it kind of doesn't necessarily align with what we consider cargo and mail in our security program. So we got to work with them to make sure there's some sort of security alignment in the defining of what that commodity or that cargo shape configuration is going to be at. We also support the K9 program, and in that basically we're just making sure and ensuring that the K9 procedures are commensurate and aligned with our cargo screening procedures and then alarm resolution for K9, so we help them in policy development. We're involved in risk analysis, what are the risks with different types of cargo, what is the cargo policy that we could mitigate, implement to mitigate risk. We also work with the Aviation Security Advisory Council, this Screening Technology Working Group, and a lot of different questions that come from industry through their associations and their groups on what cargo screening procedures are and challenges with that. We work with the TSA Red Team doing red team or internal strikes or not strikes, I'd say assessments of locations and cargo screening procedures. I also review and write a lot of the GAO audit responses on different types of reports to Congress that about why things are written a certain way, what the understandings are of those, and what else do we do? So that's just kind of a wide variety. So I was kidding, really what we do is because it's our job is so wide and so vague with just a bunch of policies and requirements, our biggest project and our biggest initiatives are to ensure that all the different programs that TSA is involved in have anything to do with cargo screening, requirements, or policy procedures are all in alignment. So if some other division is working on something, we need to make sure that what they're saying or what they're preparing or presenting out to their folks is in alignment with what maybe the international community is using, or the intent of the mail program, or whatever all the different programs are and the alignment of them all. And then I'll pass on to Matt.
Thanks, Allan. Good morning. Thank you all for joining us. Great opportunity to chat this morning, and I'm excited to be here and be part of it. Can we have the next slide? Thank you. Wanted to start off, the ITF portion is going to kind of be structured around kind of what our engagement has been in the past, what the continuous and open opportunities are for our industry exchange efforts, what's next with our outreach, and then some of the demonstration conversations, some of the impacts that we've had recently, and what's coming up near you soon. So this is a snapshot of the 2018 IDEA BAA, broad agency announcement. IDEA is the innovative demonstration of enterprise advancement. And it's our opportunity to kind of open the door and flip the script. Typically you look to government to give you the requirements. Innovation Task Force does not do that. We give you problems, and we look for you to provide us solutions to meet those problems. Because that's the opportunity for industry to really lean in and shine with some of the capabilities that you have to offer. And we try and get around, or get through, I should say, some of the assessment processes that we have for a formal procurement. When you think Innovation Task Force, think learning, think collaboration, don't necessarily think procurement and large contract. That's something that we would get to down the range, if you will. But our initial upfront value proposition is getting a new capability into our users' hands in airport and mission space as fast as possible so that we can learn about what could be and define our requirements better so that when we do a solicitation or procurement or acquisition activity, it is in a more informed way and the requirements are more holistic and encounter the broad spectrum of things that we're looking for. In 2018, you can see the problem statements that we looked at here, making sure that we aligned into our TSA mission space and improved our screening capability. We had about 104 vendors that participated with 85 solutions that were represented and staffed those around to reviewers, not only inside TSA, but inside the department and into some of our international counterparts that work in the innovation space. Next slide. So we wanted to talk about some of the industry exchange activities that we work on. We do industry days like this one. ITF typically has an innovation industry day that's focused more closely on the release or activities of our broad agency announcement or other identification process. We also have traditional briefings that we participate in around the year with associations and stakeholders. We actually kind of, like I said, flip the script, and in the spirit of flipping that script, we turn up at exhibitions. What better place to meet industry than where you're already exhibiting your capability and technology? And so we've been at Passenger Terminal Expo, Future Travel Experience, and other large industry opportunities to try and engage and get an awareness of the TSA opportunity and our mission space. We'll do quick quick pitch sessions in many of those booths in which we try and pull our users into the conversation, and with no obligations have industry come in and do a quick pitch, almost like Shark Tank, where we'll give relatively rapid feedback about your solution and what we think from a mission application perspective, without kind of that connection to a procurement or a solicitation, so it's a little bit more open and unique in that dialogue. We also do facilitation of workshops, and so you can see there on the right side of the slide some of the pictures and imagery from the Passenger Terminal Expo and Future Travel Experience, but also the knowledge exchange activities that we've done. We build bridges and connectivity in the innovation space to our international partners that are also trying to push the envelope. Next slide. In the future, what do you expect to see from ITF? We're 3 years old. I think this month is our third birthday. So we're excited to celebrate that. And in doing that, we're trying to stretch beyond some of the broad agency announcement work that we've done in the past and go beyond and take advantage of our toolkit of options. And so we look forward to taking some of the innovative intake methods that you see in the middle of the slide and getting those out into our space in the next year. We're looking at whether we might do a prize challenge or a hackathon. You may have heard about the future lane experience and some of the work that we're doing within the capability enhancement. And those are going to be opportunities to try and drive the industry to collaborate and interconnect the technology that we have so that we can drive a better passenger experience and a more effective security screening environment. We also work closely with our SVIT partners, the Silicon Valley Innovation Program, and our other DHS innovation counterparts to try and make sure that as we do things and step out in the security space or the aviation or transportation security space, we're accounting for and aligning with, where possible, our other component partners that are also doing innovation in their mission space. Next slide. Talk about some of the impacts of ITF. We've completed over those 3 years 21 demonstrations with our industry partners, which we are very grateful for having those partnerships. And we've been able to successfully enable our own understanding of requirements. You can see there some of the ITF activities that have informed and developed better requirements, moved in process improvement activity, where we've been able to streamline or more efficiently process our business. And we've been able to actively inform our acquisition decisions, better data to better decide where we go and how we move out and move forward. We've had several solutions that were identified as requiring more research, and we had several solutions that were deemed to be not field ready. The exciting thing about Innovation Task Force is we lean in and we look to kind of fail fast, if you will, and failure for us is a better understanding of the capability, not necessarily a literal, this thing didn't work. Well, maybe it just didn't apply to our mission space, and maybe it applies to somebody else's, and we can have a conversation about that and connect folks that may be able to apply it. Next slide. We'd like to talk about some of the upcoming demonstrations. This is kind of the solution space that we're working in out of the 2018 broad agency announcement. We've got several solutions that were selected, and we're working actively now to get those into a lab environment to do some characterization and assessment of those components, and then we're looking to rapidly get them into a field space, an airport near you, to try and demonstrate and get and collect. I always like to say the Mythbusters quote, right? The difference between messing around and science is writing it down. And so the Innovation Task Force, works to rapidly move through our laboratories to be able to understand and characterize the system. Some folks, I think, may misunderstand or expect that we're going to maybe outcome as a certification or qualification. Not always the case. We're looking to try and characterize and understand how that system performs so that we can get it into the operator's hands and understand how the operator interacts and the user is impacted by the capability. We have a fantastic acquisition system and acquisition team that do the lab work and do the lab assessments before we go out and buy a large acquisition footprint of something. Our opportunity is to try and get that capability rapidly into the user's hands to understand and inform how that larger test and acquisition process works. We'll look forward to any questions that you may have. Frank?
Thank you, Matt. Thanks again for having me here. Let me pitch in for Eric on the TStep portion. But much to what Matt spoke about earlier, the IT effort and getting a lot of those technologies out in the field, The feedback and the requirements, if you will, the feedback that would actually feed right into this TStep process, which stands for Transportation Security Capability Analysis Process. So just to kind of go over this, and I know this, I imagine if you don't have printouts, this might be a bit of an eye chart, but I think there are a couple of things you might want to keep note of. TStep as a whole is focused on conducting a structured, repeatable process that informs our investment decisions. These efforts are specifically made to create a process that depends more on quantifiable measures versus subjective measures. Out of this process, there are really two key areas you might want to be interested in. That is the capability needs process and also this case study process. Under the capability need process, we capture directed authorities that are provided to TSA from our legislation and DHS policy. We then identify these measures or these metrics for each of these capabilities. For example, TSA needs a capability to do X under the conditions of Y for a standard of Z. The current capabilities are then compared against these measures to identify the high-level capability gaps. These needs are then prioritized. We basically have, and these capability needs are refreshed each year. We use these to kind of align with the administrator's intent and to ensure that our investment decisions are, in fact, closing potential capability gaps. Under the case study process, we do a deep analysis, which is generally called a case study, to identify these high priority items. By the way, the case studies performed under DHS Joint Council Requirements Group requires that every analysis has to be, in fact, validated. This is since 2016. DHS has required that any investment under an R&D effort or acquisition be linked to a valid need. Now, specifically, the analysis answers three key questions that are actually pointed out here on the right. Do the current or planned capabilities meet the need? And that would imply that if not, then we have no capability gap. Can a combination of non-material solutions meet the capability need? This would basically close out, be a combination of, say, staffing, policies, procedures, training, or staffing allocation. Lastly, we would be looking under, does the combination of the current or planned capability and non-material approach still present an unacceptable level of risk? If so, then that's where we start to activate and get into an R&D effort. I think one of the key takeaways from this slide is really two things. One, recognizing that we actually follow a strict policy and procedures in terms of how we actually fill our capability gaps. And more importantly, I think a lot of the good ideas that come out of industry and academia, that we have to do our due diligence to ensure that they actually meet or align with these capability gaps and the needs that we address. So I know there's a lot of great stuff that Matt will be presenting through his ICF process and demonstrating those in the airport environment, but we on our end have to ensure that they actually address those capability needs and ensure that our investment decisions are wisely met. Next slide. Now, under my process here, we have an S&T coordination. So, for the most part, S&T strategies, we provide feedback and guidance to S&T in terms of our investment decisions, which obviously come from our capability gap analysis. Now, we do this through three main channels or bridges, if you will, and that is a strategic coordination, program management, and also a working level. Now, if we look at our strategic coordination, we do a lot of this through our regularly scheduled meetings with S&T, and I think for the most part between that and informing through capability gaps, we've done a fairly good job. But what I've observed in the time that I've been here, that there have been many instances where we've shared our program reviews with them, they've shared their program reviews with us, but really still there's opportunity to do better. So I actually, over the last 4 months, have now instituted a process where we, TSA and S&T, are actually building a combined technology roadmap. And I think one of the advantages of this, and probably for you as well, is that it really starts to align our efforts both from a resource perspective, budgetary perspective, and really our strategic goals. And it really, having already gotten involved in this already, it's really exposed a lot of great things and trends so far when you start to look at the investment decisions that S&T are making and we're making. Granted, the alignment and the timing is a little different. S&T tends to be a little bit more long range. We're more incrementally in a 12, 18 to 36 month delivery timeframe. But I think it's very important for us to see this type of alignment, especially when certain decisions are made today that may have strategic consequences down the line, further down the line. Under our program management, in addition to our regularly monthly meetings with S&T, we've also identified a dedicated individual that will actually be representing TSA with our S&T alignments. This individual has not, I guess, been identified. It has been identified. I have not met them yet, oddly enough, but they will be actually helping to lead a lot of our efforts with our S&T and TSA coordination. Under our program management, we also work with S&T quite a bit. As a matter of fact, I'll be going to Stanford next week to actually align some of our phase contrast activities. So there are a lot of opportunities at program or working level where a lot of the activities we're actually consolidating our work efforts to actually better align and make our decisions more aligned. Next slide. Real briefly on the TCPA. I know many of you probably are aware of this particular process, and I'm sure there are mixed decisions on that. But I think that we're actually making some really key changes over the next couple of months. I'd like to first talk about the target EAA. Now, this is one of the key things to understand about the target EAA. One, where actually funding is specifically identified. A specific area of interest is also identified. And the intent really comes in two flavors. Really to prove out a particular capability, or mature capability, or a mature capability for operational deployment, or for a pilot, or ITF effort. This has been quite successful. Our last target BA was the APSS, or now CPSS contract. There are a few others that we've done before through a target BAA. And we will continue to actually use and utilize this vehicle. And I believe there's also a website or a FitBiz application you can probably look to for actually submissions for a target BA process. The open BA is a little different. Under that, these are unsolicited submissions that can come from anyone on any topic in our technology area. The difference between this and our target BA is that this is not, the specific funding is not allocated. The topic areas or the technology of interest can be a much wider breadth, And generally these awards are generally single, whereas in a target BA, generally the awards can be single or multiple. Now, considering the funding allocation, one of the things that we're actually trying to do to make this a little bit more palatable and effective, because I know there's been some concerns of the timeline, it would be to actually start to align this a little bit better with our spending or our fiscal year spend plan cycle. I think this will benefit for a lot of folks that are submitting their concepts for the open BA process. It'll find that this will actually allow ourselves to actually plan for these and actually allocate funding appropriately for these initiatives or concepts.